Good morning, buongiorno. First, I would like to greet all the participants of this symposium and the organization committee, especially the chair of this symposium, Maria Eduarda Duarte, who would like to thank her very much for the invitation and for allowing that a Brazilian professor could be in such an important symposium like this, to show a little bit of the Brazilian academic production, because it's a great opportunity for sharing knowledge and experience, and especially strengthening the bonds and relationships with Brazil and South America. So it's important to say that it's an honor and pleasure to be here with all of you. To show a little bit of Brazilian culture, we can see the most important painting, Brazilian painting, named Abapuru, which was painted by Tarsila do Amaral. This figure represents the human being in interaction with nature. The title of my presentation is The Influence of the Adaptability and Construction of Work project in the process of inclusion and staying in the world of work, which I will discuss the concepts of career, adaptability, adaptation, and work project in a world of work defined by the flexicurity and present a research developed in Brazil that aimed to understand the ways that a group of urban workers in São Paulo, Brazil, have dealt with the issues of and the construction of the work project, which have been turned into categories of content analysis. These two categories are important elements of the personal promotion process. First, we have to discuss the shape of the world of work, which has been lately defined by the flexicurity as the manufacturer. When I'm talking about the world of work, I refer to the various forms of possible relationships with the world through work, covering both productive work paid and unpaid as reproductive work and maintenance. Today's world of work has been configured in a flexible, heterogeneous, and complex way, what has been breaking the privileges established and has been letting workers with a lack of social and work references. Because of this, a big group of workers has lived on flexicurity as the only current possibility of certainty in workplace, which has expanded and has diversified the experience of unemployment, precarious jobs, and temporary employment. This situation has resulted not only in labor integration, but mainly in labor vulnerability. This situation has resulted not only in labor integration, but mainly in labor vulnerability. This flexibilization process has been shaping the world of work by a stable work group, by a vulnerable group, and by a non-working group, and we related these groups to the three social cohesion zones proposed by Robert Castell: integration zone, vulnerability zone, and disaffiliation zone. The stable work group lives the modern stability, which is defined as the model of social and labor organization, determined by solid and objective basis for the bond with the world of work, and for the accomplishment of the working activity, an integrated zone. It generates vital safety and continuity, and therefore a life and a work path with safety. It's a model based on the social structure of the working organization. The vulnerable group lives the contemporary stability, or flexicurity, which is defined as the model of social and labor organization determined by bases less objective and more fluid for the bound of the world of work and for the accomplishment of the working activity, a vulnerability zone, which is not a stable situation, but a new form of stability, in my opinion, named as contemporary stability. These bases require more action by the persons in relation to the world context, for generate safety and life continuity, and consequently, a career with a sense. It's a model based on a psychosocial relationship. Finally, there is the non-worker group, lives on an unstable situation, a degraded zone. This configuration of the world of work has psychosocially impacted the workers mainly because of the changes in temporality, spatiality, and organization, the weakening of social structures and social insecurities. It has caused the struggle for better working conditions that gives rise to the fight against exclusion from work, breaking off the normative experience of modern world and a way of living in the flex security, growth and expansion of the experience of unemployment beyond the political and economical dimension, need for skills and lifelong learning. Therefore, because of all these things, the accomplishment of the personal promotion has depended on an active position in the world by the persons through the production of narratives and practice through work projects and trajectories, the identity building, and the development of adaptability, always in relation with the social conditions. And the career has turned into psychosocial and heterogeneous projects of construction, as many authors have stated. In order to understand the possibilities of personal promotion through the work life, we ought to comprehend four assumptions: psychosocial, career, adaptability, and adaptation, inspired in the life design proposal. The psychosocial is a continued and shared process of construction and signification made by practice, discourses, and narratives inside the psychosocial reality. It's not an adjustment of an individual to a reality. Both of them not understood as a defined and separate process, but a unique process viewed as a link of continuity between the subject and the social, and vice versa. The structure is always procedure and narrative, but never substantive, as we can see in the slide. Career is constituted by two main dimensions: work project and trajectory of work life. The work project has two dimensions. One of them is the objective dimension, which the action plans at work, defined as narratives addressed to the future and building the relation with the socially legitimate discourses. Inspired in the Zhang Sha's idea, the second dimension is the identity constructions at work, defined as personal narratives produced in social relationships and through the actions in the world of work, which are articulated with discourses socially produced. It is, at the same time, the process of construction and the outcomes of this process. The trajectories of work life are understood as the accomplishment of projects of work life in a given relational context, having dual function that is reflected in its conceptual ambiguity. On the one hand, as a path traversed, it allows the contact with the narratives, plots, and themes of work life, as Mark Savickas has stated. On the other hand, as the way to go, would be a reference to the process of deconstruction and reconstruction on the ongoing process of work life. Career adaptability and adaptation was well present by the colleagues that spoke before me, so I will skip this slide and go directly to the field research. To test these ideas, a qualitative exploratory research was conducted. Okay. Problems with the microphone. Okay, let's go. And a qualitative exploratory research was conducted and aimed to understand the ways that a group of urban workers in São Paulo, Brazil, have dealt with the issues of insertion and permanence at the world of work by the study of two variables: adaptability and construction of work project, which have been turned in categories of content analysis. These two categories are important elements of the personal promotion process. The participants were 4 workers over 35 years old in São Paulo, Brazil, select intentionally into three distinct social spaces: human resources consulting, public aid in labor intermediation, and service of career counseling in a university. The group of participants was formed by men and women with 40 to 50 years old, college degree, 20 to 30 years of career, mainly work at companies and servers, as we can see on the slide. In-depth interviews were conducted, shaped autobiographical narratives production about the work life, which were constructed from the narrator, however, in a process of co-construction with the researcher, who even suggested the guiding themes of the autobiographical narratives. A content analysis of the narratives was fulfilled. Main results. The first finds. Through the analysis of the narratives, the first finds pointed out the work life should be understood by 5 psychosocial continua, not defined and separate process, but a unique process viewed as a link of continuity between the poles: social discourses to personal narratives, stability to flexibility, work organization to social network, permanence to change, enclosure to openness, as we can see on the slide. Each single work life could be understood by the location of the person in this psychosocial continua. The second finds, based on this psychosocial continuum, 4 ways of the construction of career in the contemporary world of work was suggested, and turning into 4 main discourses about the work life: nostalgia, enclosure, possibility, and instrumentality. First one, nostalgia. This discourse is situated in a social pole, and it's based on the institutional dependence relationship. Therefore, it's characterized by a central process of seeking the nostalgia of the past work and employment in an attempt to maintain the previous hegemonic order of a life with stability and permanence. This process is based on a socially recognized and institutionalized labor system, as the employment system, or a workplace determined and legitimized, defined by the classical model of the organization career. Second one, the enclosure. This discourse is situated in social pole. On this pole are those who need to belong to a collective protector, which have been the basis for the identity and career hegemony over most of the 20th century. Therefore, this discourse is characterized by central process of searching for protective groups and communities. It's based on a professional system, union, or community of practice, and is defined by classical models of professional and occupational identities and careers. Its central characteristic is the reference or resistance, showing little willingness to adjustment and changes. The third one is the possibility. This discourse is located in the flexible pole, which the pole where would be those who show a need for constant change and a preference for life discontinuous, unstable, flexible, and dispersed in the social networks. This situation will enable the accomplishment of the work activity through individually articulated projects, but socially legitimized. This discourse will to do the constant search for strategies of redefining oneself and the labor world, associated with the ability to transform a number of situations experienced in a story of personal project. And the last one, instrumentality, is a discourse located outside the continuum of career construction. In this position, there is a difficulty in the construction of work life. People live in a continuous situation of instrumental adaptation to the work process, with a pragmatic orientation, marked by instrumental use of relationships with the world. This situation can be defined as an identitary strategy of adaptive diffusion. Thus, ZFF consisted of a series of similar works characterized by insecurity and with little change of recognition and autonomy, resulting in the identity. In this slide is the graphical location of the four generic discursive productions of career constructions. On one hand, we have the discourse of enclosure and the discourse of nostalgia, which are based on social structures, stability, work organization, permanence, and enclosure. On the other hand, we have the discourse of possibility and the discourse of instrumentality, which are based on personal narratives, flexibility, social network, changing, and openness. The four main discourses about the work life are core indicators for the process of the construction of career. The discourse of nostalgia is grounded on the security, stability, routine, and so on. The discourse of enclosure is grounded on the need of having a job and being a professional and specialized work activity related to the professional study developed. The discourse of possibility is based on a contemporary way of work defined by constant change, social network, and frequent challenges. Finally, the discourse of instrumentality is grounded on the random choice in a lack of work project. As you can see on the slide, the main results show the prevalence of two antagonistic ways of the construction of the work project in the studied group, both stability and flexibility with the weakening of the professional careers and also the constant emergence of temporary situations of crisis, as well as they pointed out the emergence of hybrid models of the construction of the work project. As the academic literature has pointed out, the permanence and the constancy of a single discursive modality as a basis for the construction of work life is no longer the hegemonic model for this process. In a simultaneous way, the work life has been defined by instability and not by a permanent characteristic. Does matter if it's characterized by a sense or by the fluidity. The 35% of hybrids and mixed process of career construction found out by the research is a very good example of this statement. As Bruno Latour, said the humans must be viewed as hybrids because they are at the same time individual and social. The adaptation process has been developed in different ways in a studied group through the career adaptability. And both the construction of a work project based on flexibility as well as stability are different ways of developing adaptability and can generate success or failure of the insertion in the world of work. Based on the main results, the personal promotion must be understood in different ways because it requests different forms of adaptation through different strategies, generate different and heterogeneous outcomes. And finally, we must state that the heterogeneity and the complexity of the current world have required assumptions that ought to help in the understanding of it, and at the same time it might give support in the construction of analyzed categories of psychosocial phenomena of this world of work, mainly for the ones who live in a vulnerable situation and will have to face instability their entire lives. I close my speech with another Tarsila's painting called Anthropophagy. That's the man from Abapuru painting mixed with a woman to create the world as an hybrid and random relation dimension. And a picture of my university. I thank you very much. Grazie mille. And for the Portuguese and Brazilian, muito obrigado.